Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 674, January the 25th, 2019, Friday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Okay, let's get to it right here. So, we learned the identity of the DOJ lawyer that Ratcliffe was talking about when he was on Sunday Morning with Maria Bartiromo about a month ago, and he was saying that one of the people that they interviewed was a DOJ lawyer who would have signed off on or approved of at least one, probably more than one, of the FISA warrants. We didn't know who he was talking about, although we had a pretty good idea who it was, and now it's confirmed who that was. And that was Sally Moyer. Sally Moyer. And we also learned from Ratcliffe on that particular show with Maria Bartiromo that when he asked her about the dossier and whether or not she would have approved, or whether she believed the FISA court would have approved the FISA on Carter Page without the dossier, she said it would be, maybe 50-50 or maybe 50-49 or something like that. So now we know that he was talking about Sally Moyer, who was the DOJ lawyer who would have had to have looked at the FISA application and signed off on it. So here's another person who told the committee, in this case it was Ratcliffe, that the dossier was 50-50 at best to get the FISA warrant on Carter Page. And she admits this, and of course she was one of the people who reviewed the FISA application and had to probably sign off on it. She was the number 2 DOJ lawyer that would have signed off on that, along with, what's his name, Carlin, John Carlin. In fact, I think when Carlin left, she took his spot and became the number 1 person, which means she would have had to have probably approved the other FISAs on Carter Page. We know that James Comey signed off on 3. And we know that James Comey said that even at the time, he said at the time when he signed off on the first FISA warrant, that the dossier had not yet been verified. Not only that, he signed off on the FISA warrant 3 times on Carter Page, and he said that when he was fired, at the time he was fired, which was 9 months later, they still hadn't verified the dossier. We had Bill Priestap, who was asked about the dossier being used to get the FISA warrant. And Priestap said that at the time when they signed off on the first FISA warrant on Carter Page, his words were that the dossier was the attempt to validate the dossier, those efforts were in their infancy. They were in their infancy. And we know that Andy McCabe, told the Congressional Committee that without the dossier, they would not have even submitted the Carter Page FISA application to the FISA court. There you go. And that was before we knew, that Bruce Orr was feeding it directly to Peter's been stroking us through this other FBI agent. And now we know that Michael Sussman was directly feeding it to the General Counsel of the FBI. There is absolutely no way that Attorney General Barr can look at this testimony, can look at the FISA application, can look at the FISA warrants, can see the result of all of that, meaning Carter Page has never been charged, and there's no truth whatsoever to the claims made in the dossier about him, nor just about anything else in the dossier. The stuff about Cohen, not true. The stuff about Carter Page, not true. The stuff about Manafort, not true. We know that the Trump Tower meeting was a setup. The entire thing was a setup. And Attorney General Barr, I mean, there's, you know, he would have to be a complete idiot to look at all this information and say, well, I don't know, it looks, yeah, it's kind of shady, but I guess it looks okay to me. I don't think so. These are all the top people that signed off on the FISA warrant. These are all the people that were working the investigation without any probable cause to even begin the investigation. We still don't even know the original cause of the investigation. According to Devin Nunes, there's nothing in the IC report, nothing in the intelligence community report that shows any evidence that could have been used to get the FISA warrant. So what was the evidence that was used to get the FISA warrant? It could only have been the dossier, which we know, according to Priestep, Sally Moyer, James Comey, Andrew McCabe, Bill Priestap, including Lisa Page from her testimony, Bruce Orr, we know what his questions were about the dossier, General Counsel of the FBI to Comey and McCabe, Mr. Baker, every damn one of them agree on one thing: the dossier was not verified at the time that they used it to get the Carter Page FISA warrant. They all agree on that. And much more. There's no way Attorney General Barr can look at this testimony, look at the dossier, look at where we are now, and come to any other conclusion other than this was a frame-up. They knew this dossier was garbage. They knew it. They misled the FISA court. There's no way Attorney General Barr cannot seat a grand jury, call these people in, go through all this information, and there's no way, at the very least, these people are guilty of lying to the FISA court, obstruction, abuse of power. That's just the beginning of it. That's the minimum. And if he wants to connect the dots and look at the larger picture, the activities going on within the intelligence community and all those other things going on, if he wants to go look at that, there is no question that there was a criminal conspiracy to destroy a presidential candidate, then president-elect, and then president of the United States by running this frame-up operation. The facts are clear. Even with just what we know, and there's a lot of things we don't know, but just with what we do know, there's no way that Attorney General Barr cannot prosecute these people. There's just no way around it. None. And if that doesn't happen, my friends, we are in a literal, you want to talk about a constitutional crisis. You want to talk about, and we are in a situation that's there would have to be something extraordinary. Then you might have to start talking about military tribunals. You might have to start talking about martial law. It's the only thing that could rescue the country. The country's lost. If Barr looks at this evidence that we now have, and there's a lot more, but just what we know, if he looks at this evidence, he must prosecute these crimes. And if he does not, we are beyond constitutional crisis. We are looking at the end of the republic as we know it. And the most drastic measures will have to be taken. Barr has no choice. He has no choice. The alternative takes us down a road we just cannot go. I really hope he understands exactly what he's involved in here. I hope he understands the implications of the decisions he's going to have to make. And he's going to have to make some tough decisions. He's going to have to stick his neck way out there. And he knows he's going to take heat from everywhere. But he wanted the job. He understood this when he took this job. Trump has now agreed that he will delay the State of the Union until after the shutdown. And he cites in his tweet, because of the history, the tradition, and the importance of the House chamber, he wants to give the State of the Union there in the Capitol in the traditional way. So obviously that's important to him. So obviously Trump does it again. He does something that's completely, that no one would have predicted. I haven't seen a single person really that supports the president, whether it's in Congress, in the media, or YouTubers or anything. I haven't seen anyone that suggested that he accept postponing the State of the Union. It wasn't my call. Wasn't my recommendation. Wasn't the recommendation of anybody I've heard. Not Meadows, not Jordan, not Nunes, not Lindsey Graham. No one. I mean, I've heard different ideas from all these people, different ideas from media people. I've read different comments in the comments section here. Other YouTubers who I like. I've heard no one suggest that the good thing to do at this point would be to accept postponing the State of the Union. So Trump fooled everybody here. Politically, in the short term, it's not a winner. Let's put it that way. It looks like he buckled. I don't think he buckled so much as I just think he really believes that he wants to give the State of the Union in the Capitol building. I mean, for tradition, and like he says, tradition, history, and the importance of it. The short term, I don't see it as a win in the short term, but Trump has proven to have excellent instincts, political instincts. So I'm not necessarily totally questioning him on this. I'm questioning, why he would do this, but not because I question that, his competence in this particular matter or his decision. He obviously has something he believes in here, and so I 100% back him. It's not what I would do. It's not what I would recommend he do. But this is what he's decided. And so that's good enough for me. But I do believe the short-term political consequences are not good. Maybe he is going to do something in the very near future because he says not until after the shutdown. Well, maybe he plans on ending the shutdown sometime in the next couple of days. Maybe before Tuesday night. Who knows what he's thinking. He's got good political instincts. I'll have to give him that. So he's got to have something here that he's thinking about. I mean, he wouldn't just do this. He's obviously consulted with people about it. I doubt if he would just do this on his own. I don't know who would give him this advice. Maybe people around him giving him this advice. It's not the advice I would have given, but that's what he's done. He's made that perfectly clear in his tweet this morning. So there we go. Trump is going to delay the State of the Union until after the shutdown, which brings us to the shutdown. So we know what happened in the Senate yesterday. The first bill came up for a vote. McConnell put that up. That's essentially what Trump laid out last Saturday. It was shot down. They got 52 votes. There were two Republican senators who were not present, so they didn't vote. There was one Democrat, Joe Manchin, one Democrat who signed on to that. And it failed. Then Schumer put up his bill, and it also failed. So both failed, which is what everybody expected. Now, supposedly, this is going to move them closer to negotiation. But and I don't know where this is going to go. We know there are some Democrats that are defecting, a couple of dozen at this point. Clearly, they're not in the Senate, or we'd have seen that show up in the vote today. We know that these people may be in the House or whatever, but they would need quite a few. And so, because again, keep in mind, here in the Senate, they need 60 votes. And I just don't know where they're going to get it. Even if they get it, then they got to get it to the House, and you got to get Pelosi to bring it up for a vote. So, I don't know. I'm going to give you my honest gut feeling here, is that from the very beginning of this government shutdown, and keep in mind, my experience with government shutdowns is most of the time both parties lose. the president loses, his party loses, and so does the opposition. Typically, everybody loses. There have been times when you'll see one side kind of get a victory, they'll get a bump in the polls, and the other side will go down. But generally speaking, in a government showdown, everybody gets beat up. It's just one side gets beat up more than the other. I don't see it as a, I don't really see much of a benefit in having a fight over a government shutdown unless you have a clear path to victory. And I guess my feelings is that since Trump won the presidency, the position of the Democrats has been total resistance. And so once they won the House of Representatives in the midterm elections, we have to understand that the resistance is going to continue. And if we had any doubt about that, we can see that it's quite clear, the evidence is clear now, that that is the strategy. This is a 2020 campaign strategy, resistance. They are going to resist every single thing Trump tries to do that requires legislation. Whether it's the wall, whether it's our infrastructure, whether it's taxes, whether it's anything, it doesn't matter what it is. This is going to be exactly how the Democrats, led by Pelosi in the House, are going to play it. And the whole time that they're doing this, they're also simultaneously going to be firing up all the investigations with all the subpoenas and all that to lead up to the impeachment hearings. This is what it's going to be. This is obvious to me. So when I look at this situation, we're not looking at a normal situation where you have a president which can exert certain influence. He's got the power to wheel and deal. He can do some things to get something done. But this is an extraordinary situation. There is no inkling of an opportunity whatsoever to get any deal done on anything for the next 2 years. The Democrats' position is resistance, 100% resistance to anything Trump tries to do, and at the same time, simultaneously, get on with those impeachment hearings. This is the 2020 plan, which began the day after the Democrats won back the House. So this is the reality. Now, when I look at this reality, I ask myself, why would I want to go through a multi-week, now 32, 33-day shutdown battle? Could be 40 days, 50 days, 60 days. Why would I want to get into this fight and a shutdown battle believing that I can bring enough pressure to get a deal when I'm dealing with people who've already demonstrated they have absolutely zero interest in any deal? I don't care. Trump could come out tomorrow and say he is going to throw into the deal complete legal status for every illegal in the country. They would still resist it. There is no deal to be had. There is no deal. So, with that in mind, the fact that I understand that there is not going to be any deal, regardless of what he offers, and that while they're doing this resistance, not working with Trump on anything for the next 2 years, and they're going to be simultaneously moving ahead with impeachment hearings, I would think that the best course of action for the president to have done in this situation would have been to come out and have his press conference, which he's done multiple times, go down to the border, interview the border guards, let the head of the Border Patrol, let the head of ICE, let all these guys have the microphone, lay out exactly what the emergency and the crisis is that they're informing the president of, let the president address the nation, which he did, then lay out a deal and say, I know the Democrats don't want this, but this is what Border Patrol says they need. Here's all the things they need. It includes a barrier, a wall, a fence, whatever. This is the deal. We can negotiate on some things if the Democrats would like, but we need to get this done. And at which point, if Pelosi came back and Schumer came back and did what they've been doing since that time, which is flat out not to negotiate on anything having anything to do with a barrier at the border wall, a barrier at the border, which they say that they need, the people who work on the border every day, that at that point Trump should have came out and made a second address, maybe a week later, and said, okay, You've heard from the Border Patrol. They've told us what they need. I told them I will give them what they need. We laid out something here for the Democrats. We even threw them a couple of bones for some things that they know that they really want. To work with them on DACA. To work with them on some other things that they want for border security. But they have refused to negotiate. And we have a crisis. So, at that point, Trump should have gone with the emergency declaration, executive order, emergency declaration. He can get the money and start building the wall and bring this thing to an end, sign the bills, reopen the government, and move on. And I think that should have happened probably 2 weeks ago, because I think ultimately that's where it's going to end up anyway. He's ultimately going to have to declare a national emergency, which has been done many, many, many times, and go get the wall funding somewhere else, which he can do. Yes, the Democrats are going to file a lawsuit, but they can fast track that. He'll win the lawsuit. He has the executive authority to do it. It's just another delay tactic. But that's where I think we should have been 2 weeks ago. I just don't understand, as the last 2 weeks of continuously playing this game that we're working with the Democrats, they need to negotiate, Trump's throwing them some bones. It's obvious to me that the Democrats have zero intention of negotiating anything. It's the resistance. The only thing they're thinking about is resistance and impeachment. There is nothing else in their heads but that. They are not going to negotiate anything. I believe Trump should come out, make the case clear that he's done everything he could, that we do have a crisis on the border, declare the national emergency, get the money, build the damn wall, and move on to the next thing. All the while knowing that regardless of what it is, infrastructure doesn't matter, they're going to resist it all. For the next 2 years, the Democrats are not going to sign on to anything, negotiate anything. It's going to be 100% pedal to the metal resistance and impeachment. That's it. That's the next 2 years. That would be my advice to the president. That's exactly the scenario I would lay out to him. The idea that you think you're going to get some sort of a good faith negotiation with these people, they are out to destroy him. They're not interested in negotiating anything. And even after the government reopens, I bet you that Nancy Pelosi will find another reason not to invite Trump to give his State of the Union speech. Ultimately, they are going to do everything they can to make sure that he is not allowed to come into that chamber and deliver the State of the Union. He's going to end up giving that State of the Union from somewhere else anyway. I think he seriously is underestimating how vile and nasty and determined and crazy the Democrats are. That's just my gut feeling on it. Declare the national emergency. Yes, they'll file a lawsuit. Fast track it, beat it, and move on. And go on to the next thing. And the only thing that Trump is going to get done in the next 2 years is anything he can do with an executive order, which I generally don't like. But it's the only choice he's got. The Democrats are not going to negotiate anything. Regardless. Infrastructure, I don't care what it is. They're in total mode of two things. Resist, impeach. Resist, impeach. Resist, impeach. That is all. That's the reality. Pretending that there's going to be some deal is fantasy. Time to wake up. And, as I said, if Mr. Barr does not immediately, after being sworn in, taking his position, if he does not immediately investigate the real crime, and this is left unattended until 2020, Trump will be destroyed through the impeachment process. Even if they don't succeed in getting him impeached, the process will destroy him. It's just my thoughts. The Kenton County prosecutor has already, regarding the kids at CovCath, the Kenton County prosecutor, Kenton County is the county right there in where the Covington Catholic is. The Kenton County prosecutor has already issued subpoenas and sought search warrants for people threatening or inciting violence against the CovCath students. That process is already underway. The Senate Intelligence Committee has subpoenaed Michael Cohen to testify before he reports to prison. Well, that's funny because he was going to be subpoenaed to the House, but then he kind of reneged on that. So now you get Warner and Burr want to bring him into the Senate Intelligence Committee, where I expect they'll get the same response. And if they do force him to come in, he'll probably just plead the fifth. We've always known whose side Burr was on, haven't we? If you wanted proof, 100% proof, there it is. Well, all the bigwigs are in Davos, Switzerland. That's where Kerry was when he made that disgusting comment about Trump resigning. He's over in Davos. It's the people he hangs around with. Probably flew there on his private jet. So it appears that one of the main things we're going to be talking about at Davos, as usual, is climate change. Now, they're expecting about 1,500 large private jets to be flying into Zurich, Switzerland, which is the closest airport to Davos, which means they still have about an hour and a half drive to get to Davos. That's too far for elites to have to drive in a limousine. They don't like that. So they'll be getting helicopter shuttles to Davos. And those are also fuel suckers, by the way. So here we have the climate change idiots at Davos flying in on 1,500 private jets and then getting helicopter taxi from Zurich into Davos while they talk about how we're all damaging the climate and how they must tax us to death because we use energy. BuzzFeed is laying off 215 people. They laid off 100 people just this past fall. Now they're laying off 215 more. That's about 15% of their workforce. Keep in mind, BuzzFeed has several large investors that invest to keep BuzzFeed going, and I believe their parent company is either NBC or ABC. I'm not sure which one, but it's one of the major networks. It's actually the parent company. Remember, these are large conglomerates that own these media organizations. They own many media organizations, and they have a tier. So I've seen the bar graph, the way that kind of breaks down, and BuzzFeed falls into the media operations of this large conglomerate, which owns essentially either ABC or NBC. Can't remember which one. It's either ABC or NBC. And BuzzFeed is in the same money stream, money revenue, as either ABC or NBC. So they have a much larger parent media company. They're not just a standalone, isolated, website or whatever. They're part of a much larger conglomerate, media conglomerate, and they have money which flows into them from various places within this large media conglomerate. But we've had three major media organizations in the last 2 weeks who have announced layoffs. Good. Maybe that means people aren't tuning in and reading that garbage that they're putting out. That must be what it means, right? Lindsey Graham has begun his probe into the Rotten Reverend Clinton's emails, and specifically, he's looking into how the FBI handled the Rotten Reverend Clinton email investigation. When he announced in the Senate that he was going to take up this issue, the Democrats on the committee literally burst out laughing and started making jokes. About wild conspiracy theories and various other things suggesting, oh, yeah, well, why don't you look into the Loch Ness Monster while you're at it? Why don't you take up some UFO investigations as well? Well, so in other words, this is how the Democrats on the committee are going to play this, while Lindsey Graham is going to attempt to fool us into believing he's seriously going to try to get to the bottom of the FBI's handling of the Rotten Reverend Clinton investigation. The Democrats on that Senate Judiciary Committee are going to turn it into a laughingstock. Now, facts and evidence generally win the day. Who's controlling the facts and the evidence? Uncle Bob. And who's his gatekeeper? Rodenstein. This is why they need to get Barr in there as soon as possible and get Rodenstein out. And then we can find out what Mr. Barr is made of. It won't take long, will it? Don't you think we're going to figure out pretty soon? It's not going to take as long. It's not like he has to begin a brand new investigation to see what happened. We know what happened. I just went through at the beginning of this video just a few hardcore pieces of fact information from testimony and documents that prove pretty much what happened. Shouldn't take that long. If Mr. Barr goes in there and starts dragging his feet and he's, well, yeah, we're going to look into that, and then it's month after month after month, the whole time the impeachment hearings will be underway, and Lindsey Graham's little investigation will be cock-blocked just like Nunes and the House Intel and the whole 9 yards. It'll be a repeat of the last 2 years, which will get us nowhere. But it will get Trump destroyed through the impeachment process, even if he's not impeached. Well, he will be impeached, but he won't be removed from office. But he will be destroyed. Barr knows that. Nunes says that the Mueller team has evidence that would be thrown out in court. Exactly. Exactly. But it doesn't matter. Because we're not going to be in a court. We're going to be in the Congress. The president cannot be charged with a crime or indicted. He can be removed from office by being impeached. The Democrats know that. They don't have to have the facts and the evidence. All they need is a narrative and the media. The thing here is not that they're going to be successful. They're only looking for politics of destruction. They're not looking to win a legal case. Of course you couldn't take this case into court. Tell me something I didn't know. Mr. Nunes, thank you very much. Of course it will be thrown out of court. You can never even take this damn case to court. It's a joke. But it's the court of public opinion which determines whether or not the president will be destroyed in the process. And that's what it's about. One funny thing that did happen today. Breitbart, you know, Cortez, Ocasio, Marty Feldman, Cortex, came out and made that statement that the world is going to end in 12 years if we don't do something about climate change. And so Breitbart has actually now put up a 12-year end of the world Ocasio-Cortez clock. They actually have a clock that's ticking down from the time that she made the statement. From 12 years, it's ticking down. So you can now go to Breitbart, where they'll have for the next 12 years, for the next 12 years, they're going to have this clock, which is ticking down. Tick, 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 showing you the digital readout of the seconds as they tick away as we reach that moment, 12 years from a couple of days ago, when the world should end. And they're going to keep that up there for 12 years. And it's gonna dog Cortez for her entire career. It's gonna dog her for her entire career. So at least there is something to laugh about at the end of the video. All right, that's my thoughts on everything, man. I appreciate you guys. I'll be back tomorrow with more TowerGate. You guys have a good night. See you. Bye.